Notice is hereby given pursuant to the Texas Open Meetings Act, Vernon's annotated civil statute, Article 625217, that the city of Smithville will conduct a council meeting and public hearing on May 13, 2024 at 6 p.m. at City Hall located at 317 Main Street, Smithville, Texas. Call to order. Councilman Bruno, will you lead us in invocation?
Please bow your heads. Dear most heavenly and gracious Father, we come to you tonight for guidance and wisdom for our incoming leaders and those already in leadership who make decisions for this amazing and blessed city of Smithville. Your word tells us not to be anxious for anything, but in everything make our requests known to you, and you alone will give us that peace that passes all understanding in your Son, Jesus Christ. We pray for the guidance and discernment as we continue to make important life-changing decisions for this city. Lead us in your ways and not our ways. You established one nation under God, the United States of America, and our hope is we stay united during the most difficult of times with justice and liberty for all. May God's peace and strength be with all of us tonight. In Jesus' name I pray, amen.
We have a proclamation for National Historic Preservation Month proclamation. Whereas the historic preservation is an effective tool for communities across the nation for managing growth and sustainable development, revitalizing neighborhoods, fostering local pride, and maintaining community character while enhancing livability. And whereas it is important to celebrate the role of history in our lives and the contributions made by dedicated individuals in helping to preserve the tangible aspects of the heritage that has shaped us as a people. And whereas Smithville was once a major passenger hub on the Missouri, Kansas, Texas Railroad, and the James H. Long Railroad Park continues to honor our unique heritage under the leadership of the Smithville Railroad Board and the Smithville Area Chamber of Commerce. And whereas the Smithville Commercial Historical District and the Smithville Residential Historical District are on the National Register of Historic Places, in the Smithville Residential Historic District is a recorded Texas historic landmark. Whereas the Smithville Historic Preservation Design Standards Advisory Committee was established to protect the character of our historic commercial area of Smithville, to preserve its built history and to foster economic and community vitality while honoring and protecting the social fabric and the community culture of the community. And whereas the architectural design standards were created as guidelines for rehabilitation, redevelopment, maintenance, and preservations of existing historic structures, and providing design standards for the development of new construction projects within the Smithville Historic Commercial District. And whereas the city has established historic marker program that encourages community members to designate their historic properties and/or significant events to recognize contributions from the past. And whereas Smithville has a long-standing history and traditions and honors such as the first film-friendly designation and a vibrant cultural arts district that is officially designated Cultural Arts District, which significantly enhances the historic fabric of our town. And whereas since 1975, the Smithville Heritage Society has worked to preserve, protect, and enrich the stories and histories of Smithville through its archive records and research, the Heritage House Museum and Archives, special events and programming, and partnerships that showcase and support the historic fabric of this community. Whereas May is National Historic Preservation Month, co-sponsored by the Smithville Heritage Society, the Smithville Historic Preservation Design Standard Advisory Committee, and the City of Smithville. Now, therefore, I, the Mayor of the City of Smithville, do hereby proclaim May 2024 as Historic Preservation Awareness Month and call upon the people of Smithville to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in the special observance. The next proclamation is Police Officer Memorial Day and National Police Week proclamation. And Ms. Jameson, will you lead us in that one, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Proclamation for National Police Week, whereas the Congress and President of the United States have designated May 15th as Peace Officers Memorial Day, and the week in which May 15th falls as National Police Week, and whereas the members of the law enforcement agency of the Smithville Police Department agency play an essential role in safeguarding the rights and freedoms of the city of Smithville, and whereas all citizens must know and understand the duties, responsibilities, agency, hazards, and sacrifices of their law enforcement agency, and that the members of our law enforcement agency recognize their duty to serve the people by safeguarding life and property, by protecting them against violence and disorder, and by protecting the innocent against deception and the weak against oppression. And whereas the men and women of the law enforcement agency of Smithville Police Department unceasingly provide public service.
Now therefore, I, Sharon Forrester, Mayor of the City of Smithville, on behalf of the Smithville City Council, call upon all citizens of Smithville and all patriotic, civil, and educational organizations to observe the week of May 12th through May 18th, 2024 as Police Week, with appropriate ceremonies and observance in which all of our people may join in commemorating law enforcement officers, past and present, who by their faithful and loyal devotion to their responsibilities have rendered a dedicated service to their communities, and in doing so have established for themselves an inevitable and enduring reputation for preserving the rights and security of all the citizens. Thank you. Where are we?
15.
Oh, sorry, I cut off too soon. I further call upon all citizens of Smithville to observe Wednesday, May 15th, 2024 as Peace Officers Memorial Day, in honor of these law enforcement officers who, through their courage deeds, have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to their community or have become disabled in their performance of the duty, and let us recognize and pay respect to the survivors of our fallen heroes. Sorry about that. Thank you. Got to pay to myself. The next proclamation is for Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Month, and we have a couple, if y'all want to come forward. Mr. Jimmy Jenkins, will you lead us, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Whereas today's society is finding more citizens involved in motorcycling, and whereas campaigns have helped inform riders and motorcyclists alike to motorcycle safety issues, to reduce motorcycle-related risk, injuries, and most of all, fatalities, through a comprehensive approach to motorcycle safety, and whereas it is the responsibility of all who put themselves behind the wheel to become aware of motorcyclists and to obey all traffic laws. And whereas motorcyclists are encouraged to become aware of the inherent danger involved in operating a motorcycle, and for riders and motorcycles alike to give each other the mutual respect they deserve.
Now therefore, I, Sharon Forrester, Mayor of the City of Smithville, do hereby proclaim the month of May as Motorcycle Safety and Awareness Month in the City of Smithville, and urge all citizens to do their part in increasing motorcycle safety and awareness in our community.
Also, we hope that both of the first 2 rows in the ditch, folks, keeping all the cracks up the top of the road. Yes, and out of the drainage. Thank you.
Service announcements. Very good. Okay. Update from the Smithville Chamber of Commerce, hot expenditures. Erica, are you ready? Come on down.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Erica O'Neill. I'm the new president for the Chamber of Commerce. This is loud. Okay. So what you guys have in front, I'm actually going to ask Susie to come up and explain some of these because these quarters were before my time. So I want to make sure that she answers any questions that you guys have in regards to these.
Welcome, Susie.
Hello, welcome. So let me know if you have any questions. This is the same format of spreadsheet that's been used before. This is fiscal year 2024, starting with, so this spreadsheet reflects quarter one, quarter two, October, November, December, and then January, February, March. We received 12,500 in each of those quarters. And then you will see the disbursements. Those are the same sort of categories as before. Visitor center, destination marketing, and then events with a tourism impact. And then administration would be a small portion that the chamber recouped to cover wages, personnel costs to project manage the hot funds. Any questions? Would you like me to go through it line by line? I don't know the spreadsheet that I sent to Erica that got forwarded on to Jennifer Lynch. There's the spreadsheet that you're looking at, and then there was a tab 2 on the spreadsheet that looks basically like a checkbook register. There you go. So you can literally see the check numbers, who the payee was for each of those checks, and the dollar amounts. And each of those dollar amounts are then going to line up with how you see things on the spreadsheet falling under the appropriate category. Again, whether it's visitor center, destination marketing, or events with a lodging impact. Hi, Tom. I can hear you fine, but I think it's the YouTube people.
On the bottom.
Are you not turning?
On the bottom, it has to be turned off.
Oh, how about that? Okay, better. 3 questions. One is, at the last budget cycle, we approved $5,000 of hot funds to do the Hope Float signs restoration. Does that being handled directly through the city out of hot funds, or is those funds flowing through to the chamber?
They're flowing through the chamber, and the chamber is working with the Downtown Business Alliance, Tony Dudley as the president. I'm not sure of her title with the Downtown Business Alliance. One payment has already been made in the amount of, I think it's in the third. I think, no, excuse me, it's in quarter two, that $185.09 under destination marketing for Visit Smithville signage. That was to purchase substrate.
Okay.
We have another $4,800 promised
Yeah.
to complete that project.
And
Yes.
and so the second question is, there's 25,000, I guess there's 14,000 that's been spent to date through the first 2 quarters
Mhm,
out of 25,000 that's been allocated through the 2 quarters. Did
correct.
the chamber receive the 25,000 from the city?
Yes, we received 12,500 in the month of December, and we received 12,500 in the month of March. We invoice, I send it to Jennifer and Cynthia in the last month of the quarter.
So there's been 14,000 of 25,000 spent so far.
Correct. There's about $11,000 in the bank account now.
So do you anticipate spending and Robert may need to help or Cynthia, do we expect that the chamber will get $50,000? Okay, so do you have a plan for spending all $50,000 in this fiscal year?
We do. And Erica will present that. We have projects in the pipeline that started before she was hired, and then projects that she started and things that she and I are collaborating on together.
Okay, so she's going to present the budget for that 50.
Absolutely.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Susie.
Susie, one more question.
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
On the check register, and this is just
Yes.
my weirdness,
Yes.
check number 33 and 34. Just voids?
Nope, those would be the checks to, I believe that they are, I think they're part of quarter three. They're part of quarter three. So they're not here. So quarter three is in progress. I just cut this off as of quarter two.
And just,
Mhm.
so the total then on this spreadsheet would tie to where on the front? I mean, all of your expenditures are handled by check, right?
Well, one of them, no, you're right. Everything's by check, although we did get a debit card. We got a debit card because if you look at check number 1030, reimburse the chamber for GoDaddy. So GoDaddy is paying for the domain name for visitsmithville.org. And that charge, $268.63, came through on the chamber's debit card. And so that's when I talked with Caroline, and Caroline went to the bank and got a debit card, because all of these funds are in that non-commingled hot funds account. So we got a debit card because some of those things are electronic. You can't mail them a check. So yes, they would tie, basically it would end with check number 1032 for 185.90. And that was actually reimbursing. So it's a long convoluted story, but Cynthia made the check payable to Dakota Hardwoods for the substrate for the Hope Float sign, and we reimbursed the city for that.
Okay, so if we were to have a total. for
It would all map.
column, it would tie to where on the,
So the quarter one, quarter two, you would end with, and I probably should have I keep this spreadsheet current, like as I go, and then I realized, well, it should really end with quarter two. So I zeroed out this column. Do you understand what I'm saying? And I forgot to take those two lines off.
it just makes it easier reference. if
Yes,
we were-
there's no funny business going on. Everything is to the penny.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Hey, Erica,
Yes.
question for you. I need that check for the substrate. We need to go pick it up. Who has that check?
I believe Tony.
Tony?
Tony.
has it.
Okay. Need to get it to Edward so we can pick it up, get the Hope Float sign.
If I need anything else.
Okay.
Good.
Okay, so this new quarter and what we have planned for Visit Smithville, I do have the fourth edition magazine in the works right now. We're working on the fourth edition. It's going to be 2024-2025 edition. And so we've been getting quotes for printing. We're going to start with 8,000 copies, and my goal is to have it out by August. I think August is a great time for people who start planning for the holidays to make plans to come and visit Smithville. One of the other things we're working on is a Visit Smithville sticker with a QR code that's going to direct them to the landing page for lodging on Visit Smithville. And that's also, we're going to work on a sticker that we're looking at maybe putting like some kind of sign out by Smitty, because I sit in my office and my windows right directly faces kind of Smitty. And there, you'd be surprised how many people go there and take a picture. And I mean, the other day I caught this guy, a real estate agent, like recording a song with his guitar, and I had to go out there to see what he was doing. But he was in front of Smitty making a song up for one of his listings, I guess, that he was going to put on, out. And he was supposed to be sending me the video for that. But so it's still a really big attraction. And so it's just very surprising how many people are out there, and we don't take advantage of that. So what I want to do is create a sticker and a sign that states like, tag us on Instagram, Facebook, and then come pick up your free sticker. I think that's a great way to get more people posting on that page on social media. Let's see. And then along with that, I'm trying to do some branding for Visit Smithville. So I really want to connect everything from the stickers to billboards so that it kind of all starts to connect and people really start to recognize our logo, but also just it creates branding. So people, whenever you see a billboard, whether it's, you're driving by Dallas or San Antonio, Houston, you start to connect, you start to see that and connect it. And so those are some of the things that we're doing. I've been hearing this whole the recreation of the Hope Floats billboard, okay, since I started. And so I'm hoping that we have this figured out. I'm jumping on board with this. And so I know that there's some, the artist that was supposed to be working on that is no longer working on it. So we're looking at doing something different, but hopefully we can get that sign back up because it's been going on for way too long. And then we're also working on a videography with some of the different projects, some of the different events that we've had throughout the year that we've hired a videographer to take shots of the events. And we're going to work on putting that together and also posting it online, social media and paying to get those promoted and put out there. So like a paid campaign. That's just for this quarter, guys, coming up.
Erica, may
Yes.
I have a question?
Uh-huh.
I think we're supposed to have an annual budget for what we think we're going to spend for the year. I'd have to go back and look and see what the requirements are. I think that's one of them. But my concern here is that we're part of the way, 1/3 of the way through the third quarter, and we've only spent less than half of the dollars that had been given. And the people who pay that tax, we're paying that tax to promote tourism. So I would really like to see an aggressive expenditure of those hot tax dollars to promote tourism. So
Well,
is there a short-term plan for getting up to the 50,000 that you've collected so far?
yeah, the magazines are going to be about $18,000.
Then that would explain it. So that'll bridge that'll take you from 13 or 14 to, that'll get.
Correct, yes. And, along with, all these other, the billboards are not going to be cheap either. So that was one of my questions to Susie is like, where are we? Because, we're looking at spending $18,000 on the magazines. And so I wanted to make sure that we had the budget for it. So yes.
Perfect. I just want to make sure the money's being spent.
It is well spent. And one of the things that we're going to do with this magazine too, Tom, is we're going to allow the Airbnbs, STRs, to get a 1/4 page on the magazine. And then they can use those funds if they want to upgrade to like a 1/2 page or a full page. They'll be able to use whatever the cost is of that 1/4 page to apply it to upgrading to a bigger size ad. Mhm.
Madam Mayor,
Anything else?
update regarding the Hope Float sign. So, the substrate is ready to pick up and Edwards guy is going to go pick it up from Austin, bring it back. The poles are going to go in, weather permitting, this week. The substrate will then be placed on the poles, and then, in parallel, Bastrop Signs is working on the design. And,
Oh, nice.
and once that gets finalized, it can go up, I estimate 2 to 3 weeks, 4 at the most, depending upon
Perfect. Yeah.
things come together.
Geeks out there, geeks out.
Yeah. But we're making significant progress.
Great. Perfect. Anything else?
Thank you.
No? Welcome.
Next item on the agenda, approval of the minutes from April 8th, 2024, council meeting and public hearing. Anybody have any questions?
Mayor, I have one question. For the city secretary, I don't see who seconded the motion on resolution to preserve the historic character of Smithville. You know who did? We got some people in the community who track that, so.
Okay.
Am I missing it? I see where the Councilman Etheridge made the motion, but I don't see the second, and I don't remember who did it. Thank you.
You just want to make a motion and make a point to that and she'll correct it? Unless you have something else? Can you just make a motion and then, yeah,
You need the motion?
yes.
Mayor, I move we correct the minutes to include the person who made the second to the resolution to preserve the historic character of Smithville item. And approve the rest of the minutes as submitted.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor? 1, 2. Motion is approved. Next item is administering the I'm got ahead of myself. Discussion and action on resolution canvassing the May 4th, 2024 municipal general election. You want to read it?
Okay, whereas each of the candidates in each election received the following votes. The mayor, Sharon Sidell Forrester, 393, Tom Etheridge, 345. Alderman Place 4, a 2-year term, Mitchell Jameson, 367, Dane Garrison, 345. Alderman Place 5, a 2-year term, Kathy Meeks, 414, Brandon Dunham, 266. Now, therefore, it will be resolved by the City Council of the City of Smithville, Texas, that said elections was duly called, the notice of the elections was given in accordance with the law, and that Sharon Sidell Forrester was duly elected mayor, Mitchell Jameson was duly elected Alderman Place 4, and Kathy Meek was duly elected Alderman Place 5, and said named parties are hereby declared duly elected and respective offices subject to the taking of their oath by the law of the state of Texas. Rest of it's on you. Passed and approved this 13th day of May, 2024.
Yeah. Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion. We approve the resolution.
I'll second.
Motion's been made second. All in favor and approved. Administering the pre-oaths and oath of office to the elected officials. Some for you.
You want to read that? Read that to her?
Wow, this is 4 years and this is exciting. It's like, I just want to say thank you to all my colleagues, city manager, the staff of the city, all the folks, the city of Smithville that I've worked with in the last, I don't know, more than 10 years, but the last 4 years specifically. I want to thank you, Sharon, for your leadership. It's been a lot of fun, but I'm having fun at the workforce now, so I can really focus. And I'm really excited about that. And I just want to say thank you again for all your support. We've had some great times. We've had some tough times, but I think there's going to be even greater times moving forward. So once again, I just appreciate all of you and thank you so much for your support.
Presented to Janice Bruno for her dedicated service to the city of Smithville as council member for 4 years, 2020 to 2024. Presented on this 13th day of May, 2024. We will miss you.
You still get 3 minutes to talk.
And then Kathy, you come up. If you'll come up. We're gonna do your statement of office, and if you'll just, when I say state your name and then state your place. So, I
I, Sharon Forrester, Mayor.
Do solemnly swear and affirm that you have not directly or indirectly paid, offered, promised to pay, contributed, or promised to contribute any money or thing of value, or promised any public office or employment for the giving or withholding of a vote at the election at which you were elected, or as a reward to secure your appointment or confirmation, whichever the case may be, so help me God. I do?
I do.
Okay. Now this is your oath. In the name and by the authority of the state of Texas, I
Sharon Forrester.
do solemnly swear and affirm that you will faithfully execute the duties of the state of office of
Mayor.
City Council, Alderman, place forward. Alderman, place five.
of this state and will, to the best of your ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States and this state, so help me God.
I do.
I do. Okay, and then you'll sign it before you go take your spot.
You got to sign.
You got.
My family will escape real quick, but y'all just come back here real quick and I take a picture, because I know after we finish, y'all are all escaping.
I'd let the others do it too.
Again?
What you want? Yeah. Anybody left in Spring Prairie?
Is there anybody left in Spring Prairie? Really? Think you're all here tonight.
Yeah, look like you like each other.
Nick, your family too?
The mayor's gonna sign it. I just have.
I think your wife's here, buddy.
Kathy?
Wait a minute. Were you gonna take one? Okay.
Get all three of you up there. Yeah, you're good.
Yeah. Yours, sir?
Is it time?
Yep. Now you can come.
Come on, girl. Ah.
No.
All right, let's give. Okay, so we did. Thank you. Oh, that's so. Item 9, discussion and action on election of mayor pro tem. Council, any discussion?
Madam Mayor, I would like to put in nomination the name of our current Mayor Pro Tem, Tom Etheridge, to continue in that role.
Anybody else have a nomination?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a nomination to put Jimmy Jenkins as Mayor Pro Tem.
Very good. And so do we have any discussion or you want to make a motion, Mitch?
You have to have a second to the first motion.
I made the motion, but I don't believe I got a second.
So we have a motion for Tom, waiting for a
Yeah,
second.
I
Okay.
placed Tom's name. I moved that Tom Etheridge be elected mayor pro tem for this current council year.
Motion dies for no second. I'll entertain another motion. Go ahead.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to nominate Jimmy Jenkins for the mayor pro tem.
Do I have a second?
I second.
A motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. All opposed? Jimmy doesn't vote. Sorry, Jimmy. Motion passes. Jimmy Jenkins will be the new mayor pro tem. Number 10. Do you have anybody signed up to speak in the general public comments?
Yes, I do. I have Kelly Holt.
Ms. Kelly? Hi, Kelly. Please state your name and your address for the record. please.
on, right on.
It is.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Does this come out of here?
No,
No,
I
okay.
can hear you. We got new ones. Can y'all hear okay back there? Good.
I'm sorry, what was the question again? We need a coffee pot in here. Kelly Holt, 404 Garwood in Smithville. Any other answers? Okay. Who in here has never said, oops, I didn't see that coming? I'm going to ask you that question at the end of my little comments here again. If I don't have the gift of Cassandra, I hope you will listen to me and give very careful consideration to this. Several years ago, there was an idea floated around about assessing fine on Main Street vacant buildings. That idea seems to be getting some more traction, and there's some of us on Main Street who are very, very concerned about that. I'd like to address what will happen to one Main Street vendor if y'all do that. As far as I know, there are 4 property owners on Main Street who own multiple Main Street properties. I can only address the one that is my landlord. And they don't live here. They hate Smithville. They rue the day they ever bought any property over here. We recently had our lease renewal conversation. They have one property that is vacant. The others are occupied, tenanted. I fear a very real scenario will be when if y'all go ahead with this, that fine that she is assessed for that vacant building will be handled this way. She will do what every other business person on the planet does. She'll pass it to me. We cannot handle a rent increase, so we'll have to go out of business. So now you'll have another empty building on Main Street. My profits from my little portion of that business, or part of my profits, go down the street for my monthly gym membership at Iron Tiger, which I would not do anymore. I would have fewer visits to the bakery and all the other places where that money, they say money changes hands 7 times in a town. That's a big deal if that happens. So I'm just, anyway, please give consideration to what that's really going to do to the people on the ground. We kind of feel like there's a lot of people with no skin in the game who are making a decision without having talked to the rest of us. I made it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, May I ask a question of the city manager regarding any factual representations in terms of consideration for the ordinance that she was referencing?
At this point in time, there's only been discussion about things, ideas of how to improve occupancy downtown. Vacancy tax or taxes are tough to implement. There are other options we could go with, but at this point in time, there is no plans to implement such tax.
Thank you.
I understood just in our preliminary discussion, which was just extremely brief, that you emphasized it would not be a tax, it would be an ordinance, and there would be fines opposed to it being called a tax. So, again, we as the chamber, and I know I have to, you know, I'm still involved in the chamber, but we do recognize that that might be a tough sell, but it's only one option. I mean, we're exploring various options to how to revitalize Main Street, and that is not, you know, the end all to be all, but it just opens it up to start having a conversation because it is just an option and a tool in our toolbox from where I see.
Okay, thank you.
One more question. Do we have plans for this to be on a future agenda?
Where we left at the last discussion is our general counsel is looking into our options to provide for consideration going forward, but no immediate plans within the month or so to do such. It'll be part of the budget process and adoption.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Next, I have James Keller.
Please state your name.
Good evening. I'm Jim Keller. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'd like to give you a little background. I'm the owner of 300 and 302 Main Street, which has been methodically, carefully, lovingly, slowly, and very expensively restored, even though it hasn't been visible from the outside. You may have noticed recently that all the plate glass windows in the front have been replaced with tempered glass, brand new glass. And most of the windows on the second and third floor, at least the few on the second floor, which is really just the mezzanine in the back and the balcony in the front, have been rebuilt with great effort and difficulty because they're curved windows. I couldn't find a contractor in San Antonio who could cut the glass in that shape. I have a preservation masonry expert, Baltazar, who got the governor's award for conservation. He works on the Alamo in San Antonio, and he comes all the way out here because he's been working with me for decades. And he is devoted to saving this building. And I'll tell you something, restoring old buildings is a great big pain in the patootie. It is not easy, and to do it right is very expensive and very slow. And you can't just call Joe Blow, oh yeah, he's a carpenter, get him over here. He will butcher the place and ruin it, and he'll make it so that it lasts for 20 years and looks like hell. You got to find somebody who has lived with conservation work for decades. And I have that man. And he has done extensive repointing of brick, which if it hadn't been done, it would have eventually led to structural problems. So I have essentially saved the building. I'm not sure what the law was when I bought the building, but I think it would be a temptation for some to say, hey, the salvage value of all this brick and old lumber is worth more than I paid for the building. I didn't do that. I bit the bullet and worked on it. And I'm going to tell you that my history goes back further. I bought the second oldest house in the historic district in San Antonio, which was built when Lincoln was alive. And I paid about twice as much to restore it as it cost me. And that now it's a landmark place. So I just want you to consider with regard to putting some kind of punitive action towards an unoccupied building. And I don't know if a building that's under a long reservation would be considered unoccupied, but I kind of fear that somebody might say, I don't see a tenant. But bottom line is that I would have to face the choice. Do I stop work? I might just have to do that. I'll just wait for the market to go up if that happens. So anyway, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. We move to the next item on the agenda is hearing recommendations from Planning and Zoning, P and Z Chairman Garrett Gutierrez.
Good evening, council. P and Z recommendations, agenda item 11A, zone change on Short Street for the two lots next to 7-Eleven. The committee member Poss had a question about the other properties that the church owns that are still zoned to SF1. And a concern with the change to community facilities pushing further into the SF1 district. The church was planning to do more with the land, but their plans changed and the property will remain a playground and a parking lot at this time. It was pointed out that there are several other churches in town and their properties are all listed as SF1. So eventually, if those were ever to move to what they should be as community facilities, then we would be encroaching again into the SF1 district. But these churches have been here for quite a while. There was no one from the community that spoke on this item. The property has been owned by FBC, First Baptist Church, for many years. And the P and Z committee recommends approval for rezoning to CF with a vote of 4-1. Any questions on that item, item A?
Any questions?
Item B is the replat for the two lots into one, the same two lots that we recommended to rezone to community facilities. No community members signed up to speak on this item, and the committee unanimously voted to approve the combining of both of these lots into one. Any questions on that one?
Go ahead.
Item C, the final plat for the Prairie subdivision. Representative for the subdivision, Befco, gave an update that they were at the very end of construction. There are very few items that were to be completed by this meeting that we're in tonight. All water, wastewater, and street improvements had been completed. Almost all the drainage improvements had been done, with the exception of a couple items that were delayed due to the rain we were having, and they were hopeful that these items would be completed by the end of last week. We did have one neighbor that spoke on this with his concern about the drainage that wraps around the property. And I think he was concerned with building fences all the way up to his back fence and how that would block the drainage in the future. And then mentioned dogs possibly getting out underneath because it would be a gap. It was explained to him that the fences, the back fences, could stop before it, which raised another concern that who would maintain between the two fences then. And at that point, city manager said that it's a city utility easement and they would maintain it. This member's concerns seemed to be addressed at that point. The Planning and Zoning Committee also voted unanimously on this one to approve the final plat. One note to make that was brought up as well was the name change. Not sure if y'all have the original plat or whatever. Is it up there? No, that one's corrected. So this one's corrected. The one that we had received in our meeting was by the old name and it had been renamed due to, I think, a street name that had been taken and they weren't able to use. So they renamed the subdivision based off that. Any questions on that?
Mayor, I do have one question. Chairman Gutierrez, I did watch the meeting and I just wanted to understand in terms of the responsibility for maintenance of the easement. Is that part of the homeowners association or the owner of the subdivision up until the property conveys and then the city takes over? Is the city responsible from day one?
I would not know how to answer that. I have to lean on the city manager for that.
Okay, the infrastructure, the road, streets, curbs, gutters, lights, that's under a performance maintenance bond for 1 year period, at which time that turns over to the city. And so in the interim, because it is our easement, if there's grass that grows between the drainage conveyance and the fence, the city will take charge of that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go into the public hearing. Anybody signed up to speak? I'll adjourn the public hearing and go back into the open meeting. Discussion and action on an ordinance for a zone change from SF1 Single Family District to CF Community Facilities at 305 and 307 Short Street, Burleson, Block 27A, Lot 5 and 6, property owner First Baptist Church, agent Michael Murphy and Jody Kolachek. Council have any questions?
I should have asked this for Councilmember Gutierrez. The reasoning for changing from SF1 to community facilities is what? It's a grandfathered today. Is there any proposed change in use? Did I miss something?
Religious facilities are allowed in SF1 under special use.
Right.
If you go from SF1 to community facilities, you don't have to do the annual special use permit. And some of the setbacks do change from SF1 to community facilities.
Right. So this is just an opportunity to change it and it's appropriate and that's really, there's no reason to, it's not going to impact what they do today.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
How does that apply or impact the other churches around town? Are we in a similar situation?
They are in a similar situation, but the pre-existing non-conforming use that if they change the use or come before us, then we'll fix it then. There's not an effort to go out and make everything community facilities, broad scale. But as the entities come to the city to make that zone change, we're going to accommodate that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion on a zone change from SF1 Single Family District to CF Community Facilities at 305 and 307 Short Street, Burleson, Block 27A, Lot 5 and 6, property owner First Baptist Church, agent Michael Murphy, and Jody Kolachek.
The motion's been made in second. All in favor? 1, 2. Approved. A replat combining 2 lots into one at 305 and 307 Short Street, Burleson, Lot 27A, Lot 5 and 6, property owner First Baptist Church, agent Michael Murphy and Jody Kolachek. Council, you have any questions?
Mayor, I move approval of the replat combining 2 lots into one at 305 and 307 Short Street, Burleson, Block 27A, Lots 5 and 6, property owner First Baptist Church, agent Michael Murphy and Jody Kolachek.
I'll second.
Motion's been made second. All in favor? 1, 2, 3. Approved. A final plat for the Prairie subdivision, property ID 68634, A46 Lomas, L, acres, 7.1220, 46911, Quail Run Townhome Subdivision, Block B, Lot 27, 46840 and 46841, Quail Run Townhome Subdivision, Block A, Lot 31 and 32. Property owners SJ2 Development LLC, agent Bevco Engineering. Council, you have any questions?
I make a motion on a final plat for the Prairie subdivision, property ID 68634, A46, Lomas, L, acres, 7.1220, 4692221, Quail Run Townhome Subdivision, Block B, Lot 27, 46840 and 46841, Quail Run Townhome Subdivision, Block A, lots 31 and 32, property owner SJ2 Development LLC, agent Bethco Engineering.
Motion been made in second. All in favor? A motion is approved. Next item on the agenda is discussion and action on the annual audit for 2022-2023 fiscal year budget. Where's our, there, come on.
Yeah, Mr. Jack Clark here. Lucky to have him again to present the audit findings.
Reserve judgment on that.
Okay.
Oh.
I would like to thank y'all for putting it off from last month so that I could come and present it tonight. I got my annual reinvigoration by driving around the neighborhood of Smithville. I just want to tell you what a great city you have. I've told you that for a long time now, but great city. It's always a pleasure to be here. It's always a pleasure to be here. And I have all these notes in here I was going to go over, but I don't want to bore you too much. You got a new council member and I told her I had to be nice tonight. What I'll do is just call your attention to certain pages and certain comments. I assume you've had a copy of this, that you've read it. If you have any questions as we go through it, interrupt me and ask the questions then, or you can wait until the end if you want. The first page I want to talk about, the first section, is the management discussion and analysis. This is what we call the GASB 34 section of the audit report. It takes the city, which is normally operated under fund accounting, and puts it into a net asset or financial statement, which reports balance sheet includes the assets and the liabilities, whereas the fund accounting does not include those items in the balance sheet. I'll usually start off on page 19 because 19 tells you the nightmare you have, new council member, starting right off. And I'll call your attention to the very last column where it says total on page 19. If you go about halfway down, you're going to see a negative number, $4,108,000. That's how much you start off in the hole when you start your budgeting process. What we do, we take all your funds, your operating funds, and we say, all right, these funds generate this amount of money, but they generate this amount of expenditures, negative $4 million. So it's your job as council members to come up with that $4.1 million. So where does it come from? If you look right below that, you'll see property taxes and sales taxes. Property taxes in the city of Smithville are 2.2 million, sales taxes 954,000, $3.1 million. That represents 74% of your budget. Then you have other various franchise taxes, hotel, gain and loss, and miscellaneous. And basically you end up covering that 4.1 million with $168,000 surplus. Does it make sense to you? Kathy, you got that? I'm going to pick on her tonight. She's my picky tonight since all my other ones have gone. The next page I want to call your attention to is the general fund, which is on page 22. And always focus on the general fund. That's your operating fund. Everything that you do primarily from a general operations point of view happens in the general fund. The other big fund is the utility fund. But if you look down at the bottom of column 1, you will see that the general fund has a fund balance of 1.566 million. And that's going to become important here directly in just a minute. Flip over to the next page. And now you see revenues and expenditures. General fund had 4.7 million in revenues, $5.8 million in expenditures. If you remember back over in GASB 34, You don't generate very much money except through income tax, property taxes. You ended up with a deficit of $1 million. So how does the city make up for that $1 million deficit? They do it with an operating transfer out from the utility fund of $1.3 million. That's the number right below it. That transfer in from the utility fund gave the general fund a surplus of $296,000, which increased your fund balance from the previous year from 1.3 to 1.5. I'm going to go into this a little bit more later because this operating transfer in and out thing. But what I'm interested in here is does your fund balance cover your 3 months operations? That's what y'all have said. If you take your expenditures, 5.8, divide it by 12, multiply it by 3, your 3 months of expenditures is 1.461. That's what your policy says you should have. You have 1.596. So voila, you're in compliance with your own policy. But remember and keep in the back of your head, it came at the expense of an operating transfer in. And those old timers sitting here who know me know I've harped about this for a long time, and I'll tell you why here in just a minute. But you are covered. You are in compliance with your policy. You do have 3 months of operating expenditures, which I was telling Kathy before the meeting. I was started here when you had a fund balance of 15,000. So not bad. You've done pretty good. Over on page 27, just a quick look at the budget. I always look to make sure that you don't have a deficit budget anywhere. And you did have a positive budget of $303,300. So your budget's in compliance, no budget comments. Now we'll go over on page 29 and you see the utility fund. And I'm going to call your attention to this, but I'm not going to make a big deal out of it because we fought this battle for a long time. My whole purpose in calling your attention to these numbers is to keep it in your minds as you go through your operating year and to get into your budgeting year. Just be aware of how these things interplay. If you look on page 29, you will see that you had income before transfers out. The utility fund had $1.1 million net income. But then what did you do? You transferred out 1.4. That threw you into a deficit of $295,000. Guess where that deficit went? It balanced out over in the general fund. The utility fund is the reason that the general fund works in the city of Smithville, in the city of Lampasas, and any city that owns its own utility fund. They use this utility fund as a balancing mechanism. But don't go too hog wild on it, because take a look over on page 28. The utility fund has a fund balance of $5,205,000. That's pretty good fund balance, you think, right? But take a look at what the components are made up of. $3,690,000 of it is investment in fixed assets. That's not cash. That's all the equipment, tools, land, and everything you own. Your fund balance unrestricted is $1,514,000. That's the number you got to be familiar with. And I know Robert's been dealing with this and he's put up with me for years, so he knows what's going on. Just keep it in the back of your mind. Do not become tied absolutely to the utility fund to balance the general fund. Work to try to get the general fund positive or less negative. And you do that a number of ways. You cut expenditures, you can raise property taxes. These guys would like that. But, right? But be aware of it. All, my whole point here is just to make you aware of it. You didn't get here from 15,000 to $1.5 million without being aware of something. So keep that up. The other area that I call your attention to, if you want to know what's going on in the city in verbiage instead of numbers, read your footnotes. Your footnotes begin on page 37. If you just read that first footnote, it talks about the reporting entity, the summary of significant items and so on and so, sort of tells you how general fund works, the utility fund. Tells you about your budgetary requirements. What the footnote that I want to call your attention to, there's a couple of them in here that you can, on page 43, this is a good thing. Violations of legal or contractual provisions, there were none. So you don't have to go to prison this year, Kathy. You picked the right year. B is a deficit fund equity. We don't have any deficit fund equities. So you're good in that area. Over on page 45, and I just call this to your attention, these are your capital assets. And y'all are in a big project going on right now, and you notice that you had some increase in your construction in progress. 1.2 million, you moved 758,000 into infrastructure, ongoing process. Same thing on business assets over on page 46. Now your nightmare, this is one you can take home and read at night. On page 47 is your defined benefit pension plan. This is what this whole purpose of this 6 pages of verbiage is to let you know where you stand if everybody quit and the city shut down and you had to fund all your employees' retirements, current and past. How much have you got covered in your retirement plan? And it's called, the difference between what you have covered and what the liability would be is called the unfunded liability. And that's always my number of interest. And if you look over on page, somewhere I have it written down, your unfunded liability in the city is 22%. I can't lay my hands on it off the top of my head, but you have approximately, in other words, you're about 200 some thousand off. So you're unfunded by 22%. When I was county auditor in Lampasas, my goal was 15%. So you're in pretty good shape on your pension plan. In fact, I was a little bit surprised that you're really in that good a shape because there's a lot of cities that would give their eye teeth on to be unfunded 22%. Then the other footnote I want to call your attention to is over in on page 67, if you want to see some more of your liabilities. In your, I got your unfunded liability if you look on page 60. That first column measurement year 22, you're covered 77%. That means you're off 23%. The next footnote is something called OPEB, post-employment benefits. This is your health insurance and everything that you're liable for because you offer that benefit to the employees. That is the portion of your liabilities that you owe on OPEB in that portion of the footnote. Then, and that's on page 67. Then the debt service fund begins on page 85. That's basically all your various liabilities. There is a footnote about debt service, and it tells you what next year's liabilities are, next year's payments, and you can use that help you with your budgets. And then over on the, beginning on 91, that's our compliance letter. Y'all have, which sort of hurt my feelings, y'all did so well. We didn't have any problems with compliance. There were no compliance issues, and the only compliance issues you had from last year, which was related to bidding process, is fixed. So I didn't get to write you up. What a disappointment. That's on page 101. I'm teasing, of course. It says Texas bid law compliance, and it says we did not note any non-compliance with bid law during the current year. And so there's no findings of question, cost, or anything in the audit report. I only have one other thing. Y'all have a letter in your audit report. This is the letter from us to you telling us what we did and how we did it. I want to call your attention to, well, I guess it's going to be the second, third page over. Third page over, fund balance of the general fund. A commonly accepted best practice for fund balance is maintain an ending fund balance level at least 25%. Y'all have 27. So you're good on that. No matters came to our attention during the audit that would require reporting in accordance with any of the internal control compliance issues. And one other thing I'd like to call you, the last thing in that letter are the adjusting journal entries we had to give the Cynthia in the accounting department. 2. I cannot tell you how unusual that is for us to only have 2 journal entries on a governmental audit like this. Most times we can have as many as 15 to 20. So don't get any kudos to Robert. Give it all to Cindy. I can't escape.
There it comes. All right. So notwithstanding the 78% of coverage on unfunded pension obligations is good. The trend in recent years is down from almost 100%. And this may be as much for Cynthia or the city manager. What is driving that? We're obviously not contributing to stay up to where we were. I know we made some adjustments to our pension. I think we made it a little bit more generous, if I'm not mistaken. So my question is, do we have a plan to fund that additional pension that we approved to where we get back closer to that 95%? Notwithstanding 78 is good, but I would rather be close to 100%.
The only way that I know of that you can do that, and the way I approached it as a county auditor, was the state is going to put in so much of a percentage. That's all they're going to put in. So normally, if say the state retirement system says you'll put in 7%, how do you make up that difference? It's the match. In Lampasas, we did 14%, 2-to-1. I just worked with the city of Kempner, and they're going to raise theirs. They're doing a 1-to-1, and they're getting in a lot worse situation than y'all, and they're going to raise it to a 2-to-1. So the way you can get it, keep an eye on it. Earnings of the plan, that's up to the state and the retirement system. But keep an eye on it, and if you decide that the way to do it is to raise your match, that's just the only way I know of doing it. Are you 2-to-1 now? You know, in reality, one other way, well, you can't do it in one other way that I've worked with cities who have a good fund balance is I'll make them, if they've got a good unrestricted fund balance, I request or recommend that they set up a reserve in their fund balance. It can be restricted or dedicated fund balance to cover that difference. But your fund balance is your fund balance, but you're looking at your unrestricted fund balance for your 3 months compliance. Y'all need to get a little bit higher to do that. And do not transfer it in from the utility fund.
Stop it. Message received.
Okay, but that, if you could do that and work toward that, that's a good way to do it, is just set up a reserve in your, a restricted fund balance. And then restricted fund balance requires the council to restrict it, and it will require the council to unrestrict it. It's pretty ironclad. But that or increase your, contribution to your match. Y'all did go up. You were lower than 22%, but yeah. Have you gotten more, have you gotten, the only thing, I didn't do a deep dive into this, but was it raises, more employees or what?
Yes.
All the above?
Mr. Clark, you're going to talk about interest in sinking and M&O and how the appraised values, assessed values from the county about keeping the tax rate. What have you told me since 16 years ago? Say it again,
You want me to say it again?
please.
All right. One of the things y'all did a long time ago was you cut your tax rate 10 cents. When I told you at that time, when I was much younger and wore a younger man's clothes, that you shouldn't have done that because it's extremely difficult to get that 10 cents back. And y'all are still experiencing a lot of that. But I guess you need to be aware of what affects that. One of the things that you did that saved your bacon this year, C of O's will cost you a vote. Y'all did tax notes. Is that tax notes? You did tax notes. That helps your tax rate because it doesn't force you, one, it doesn't make you go out for election, but it also is a protected rate. So I think you did a good job when you made the decision on your $3 million to do a tax note as opposed to a C of O because of the effect it had on your tax rate. But I also still think, be careful about cutting your tax rate. Well, don't cut your tax rate. Sorry, guys. But because that's what you operate with. You saw in that first schedule that I showed you, 70-some% of your budget balancing comes from property taxes and sales taxes. And that's just a fact. And that's just the nature of the beast in the state of Texas. Be aware of your property taxes. I don't think you should raise them just for the fun of it. I was kidding about that, but be aware of it. If you can do something as an alternative, like tax notes, do that. In that way, it's easier on your tax rate and easier for you to rate. City of Kempner has a note. I've recommended to them to go ahead. They've got enough fund balance to pay off the tax note and move that 3-cent tax rate to the general fund operating tax rate. Then they don't have to worry about a vote because they did not raise the tax rate. Then you pay less money. That all makes sense. I've yapped here all afternoon. Y'all probably.
Very good.
Good luck. And if y'all have any questions about this, all you gotta do is call me. And if you want to talk about it again, I'll be more than happy to come back. I hope I bored you enough that you don't want me back. I appreciate it
Thank
very
you.
much.
Mayor, you want a motion to accept the audit?
Yep.
I move we accept the audit as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion been made in second. All in favor? 1, 2. Approved. Thank you. Be safe going home. Discussion and action on a resolution designating authorized signatures for contractual documentation pertaining to the Community Development Block Grant Mitigation Resilient Communities Program through the General Land Office.
Okay, Council and Mayor, this resolution will allow the mayor and or myself to handle all matters involving the Resilient Communities Program or the comprehensive plan, this is how the bills are going to get paid. So this gives us signature authority to process those bills. Question?
Anybody have any questions?
I do have somebody that wants to speak.
Oh, oops.
Robert. Robert Portello. No? Okay.
I practiced your name. Did you hear me? We practiced your name, remember? I was ready for you. Oh, thank you.
You want a motion?
I do.
I move, Mayor, that we approve resolution designating authorized signatories for contractual documents pertaining to Community Development Block Grant Mitigation Resilient Communities Program to the General Land Office as presented, Mayor and/or City Manager.
I'll second that motion.
Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor? Motion is approved. Number 18, update on the results of the solid waste survey.
Mr. Jose Rivera, our Community Engagement Coordinator, will be presenting the results of the survey.
Good evening, everybody that's still here. Thank you. I would like to talk a little bit about the results that we received from the basically a community collective City of Smithville Solid Waste Management Survey. Well, the big reason why we did this in the first place is to provide council a tool to have a better comprehensive decision during the negotiations or any possible change in the future for the solid waste management. We wanted to have a comprehensive idea of what the citizens' needs were and actually like what they would like to have. So we created this survey. I'm pleased to say there was a lot of effort from the community to put it together. And I would like to say thank you to the library and Judy that participated in this, the ABC group, the Chamber of Commerce, the Rec Center, Keeps Smithville Beautiful. We have the Community Gardens, Jim and Bernadette Knoll, Mr. Robert Patillo, and also Jenny Bush, which she spearheaded in the community, helped us a lot to collect some lots of these, and also brought a lot of feedback that was very valuable to get this survey together. This survey started in April 1st this year. It stayed for a month. We closed it this month on the 1st. It was conducted in English and Spanish. We had a paper and electronic that looked like this for the people that I hope most people that's here fill it out. In the back it was Spanish and the other side was in English. We had about 40 copies that were entered manually, that we received manual copies from that. We collected 376 responses total, which is actually pretty nice considering the voting rate that we have here, unfortunately. So we have 41 people that took the beta or the initial survey that we were testing and getting feedback from, that all the people that participated provided somewhat of feedback from that. 44 people were out of town, and that's why you'll see on the numbers there's a difference there. We wanted to make sure that the questions that we were asking were considering the people that will get affected. So that's why there's a difference of 44, and then the total responses were 286. Also, there was 5 duplicates, so you'll notice that the numbers don't match with what I said here. It's because 5 of those were duplicates. We went and checked the IPs on the responses and make sure, again, that the people we were considering and counting for these surveys were indeed the people from the town, and they were not submitting multiple responses. So that's why 5 were taking out and consider 1 response of those. So if you see here, this is the biggest question that we had and the most important, well, one of the question that was asked more often, how many times would you like to have the service done, once or twice a week? And we see the numbers here. We can see 45.26% said once a week, and 51.23 was twice per week, and 3.51 was just once. And then here we wanted to go and dig in a little more deep in that same question, and we noticed that the question was, if the city were to change the trash pickup only one time per week, residents who have more trash will be able to purchase a second trash can from WMI. What is your need preference related to this option? And here and you can see a little bit in depth the numbers here, what it says I need twice a week service, and I don't need or want to pay for a second trash can. And you'll see the 40.70% on that response. You see the I want to go once a week service. I would like to pay for a second trash can. Obviously, there's not a large desire for that. It's only 2.46. And the other ones go in depth of the other iterations. So if I would like to go once a week, I would like to have no trash cans, or I would like to have the recycling, which you'll see is 27.37%. I'm not sure what I would like to, what will be best for my city is only 1%, and others. And of course, I just want to make sure that if anybody at any point would like to go in depth to see the numbers, raw data, or any of the questions, they're available on the report. And at the end, I will show a QR code and a link for you to check that. Also, the use of the recycling center before and after. The story behind this is basically to see what was the biggest change on use of the recycling center. Obviously, this is before the fee, and you'll notice that it went down 51% from the local use. But on the other hand, we increased the use of the recycling center by external participant from other towns. We have to this point 465 people that has signed up for for the recycle center fee of $100. The idea is to reduce the total cost for the year. The leaf and limb was another question that was very important, and obviously here it shows that people like it and they want to keep it. 77.39% said they don't touch it. We like it like it is. And then there's other like call for pickup only, 17.31%, which was another option, but this is the results of that. The satisfaction overall of the or a service provider, WMI, is very positive. If you can see, the very satisfied 55, 83%, and satisfied 29, neutral 13, and dissatisfied only a 1.41%, or very dissatisfied is one person out of the whole sample. These are the neighborhoods that we were able to collect the sample from. Those are the numbers of the people that reported in those areas. And if anybody has any questions, or if you would like to see more information about the other questions that we submitted on the survey, feel free to use your phone and get that QR code. I will also have a copy here if somebody would like to go back and check it.
Sorry, I just wanted to make a correction on the neighborhoods. If you can go back one more. Okay, that's not the number. The numbers are not the numbers of respondents. Those numbers just correspond with just arbitrary, the neighborhood. So if you look at Brown Primary School, that's number 1. It's actually not listed on here the way it should be. It should be a legend. I'm sorry, we missed that. We'll have to fix that. In the report, it shows a legend. So number 1 is the Brown Primary School area. Number 2 is the MLK Park area. Number 3 is the Born Again Emporium area. So it just shows you where the respondents came from. And if you look at the numbers of respondents, so Brown Primary School had 23 respondents and MLK Park had 25 respondents. So it just tells you where in the community where those responses came from. So, yeah, sorry. Yeah. No, not at all.
No, no.
Yeah, it's just geographic. The circles are basically the geography. So more or less where that landmark is and kind of the more or less the geography of the people we expect would have been in that area. Yes, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Any questions?
Anybody have any questions for him? Comment? Very good.
Thank you.
Do we have anybody,
Yes, I have Robert Patello.
tell, Mr. Robert? Did you want to speak?
They're talking about you right now, Robert. You're calling you on.
Very good. But if you have any other questions, you can always come in and talk to Jose. He's always here. Thank you. Anybody else? Anybody else signed up to speak? Okay. No action will be taken? Next item on the agenda. Discussion and possible action on waste management contract. Mr. Matt?
Council Mayor, this is Mr. Matt Myers from Waste Management. He's a senior account executive for our contract. And he was on the schedule for March, but we pushed it because he wanted to see the results of the survey. I tasked Mr. Myers to come up with, if the survey results had warranted or came up with once a week, what would that fee be? And also, we're going to talk about the annual contract that we have has a escalator of 5% typically, but this year the escalator was 3.8%. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Myers to
Good
present.
evening, Honorable Mayor, council members. Matt Myers, happy to present this evening. So the first issue I'd like to address was the March 1st annual rate adjustment and how that was calculated. And the contract we executed March of 2021, the annual rate adjustments, it's weighted in two different areas. 80% of it's weighted toward a CPI for garbage and trash. It's an index that comes out. And 20% is weighted towards a Department of Energy index for Gulf Coast diesel #2. So for this year, the index for CPI for garbage and trash, it went up 7.25% based on the year-over-year average. And so that's weighted 80%, so that came out to a 5.8% weight. For the fuel, for the year-over-year average, it went down 10%. And so that was weighted 20%, so that factored in negatively 2%. So therefore, the annual rate adjustment this year was 3.8%. And just to put it into perspective, the previous year's calculated rate adjustment was 15.62. And that was because the fuel index went from 2.84 to 4.5, a change of 58.45%. So weighted 20%, that was 11.89. But in the contract we executed in March of 2021, there was an annual rate adjustment cap of 5%. But it did allow us to request an additional percent based on unforeseen circumstances. And we've experienced some double-digit inflationary cost pressures with fuel, with wages, with maintenance costs. So last year we asked for an additional 5%. That was turned down. In 2022, we asked for an additional 5%. That was turned down. And that was just the nature of that clause of the contract. It's a request. It can be, rejected entirely or a portion of it accepted. So that's how the contracts are structured, and that's, why we like to do them going forward. So are there any questions on how the rate adjustment is calculated?
Are those rates, they fluctuate obviously from year to year?
Correct. These indexes do
Is
fluctuate.
there a cap on those?
Right now with the contract, it's a cap of 5%. So this year was just 3.8%. I did not request an additional amount. So we just kept it at 3.8% this year. So the rate for this year for the residential, twice a week, trash and monthly bulk collection went from $30.82 to $31.99 per month. So now I would like to talk about potentially what it would look like going to once a week residential trash collection. So right now with the twice a week collection, we want to run one rear load truck and we pick up, and the city is divided in half. And so on Monday and Thursday, we're servicing one side of town, and then Tuesday and Friday, we're servicing another side of town. And the reason we do this with the rear load truck is because a lot of your material, trash is put out in the alleys. And you have low hanging wires through the alleys, and we can't go through there with the automated side load truck. The automated side load truck has an arm that comes down and grabs a cart, lifts it up and dumps it at the top of the truck. So this residential trash service has been done with a rear load truck dating years and years back to when BFI provided the service. And then when Allied Waste bought BFI, they continue with the rear load. Republic Services bought Allied Waste, they continue with the rear load. And then in December of 2018, Waste Management of Austin acquired Republic Services of Austin, and they again continue to service your community with rear load truck. Optimally, we'd like to go to an automated side load truck. It requires just one person instead of a driver and two helpers with the rear load truck. So there's still no plans to, we'll continue to service your community with a rear load truck. So, but in looking to go to once a week service, instead of dividing the city up in half, we divide it up into quarters. And we would come with the rear load truck and we would provide the once a week service on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So we did a pricing pro forma, and we entered all of our current costs into that model. And so what we came up with was for once a week service with the rear load truck and including the monthly bulk collection, the rate would go from $31.99 to $26.24 per month for once a week collection. So again, this is an option. If this is something by the survey, it still seems like people like the twice a week service. And we have no problem continuing to service your community twice a week now and well into the future. So are there any questions about going to once a week?
Where is that reflected in these charts? The comparison? The number that if you went from twice a week to once a week?
Oh, I did not have that in any of the presentation material.
Okay, then please repeat it so I can write it down.
Okay, it's going for twice a week residential trash, once a month bulk. The monthly rate would go.
Will you pull that up? I did a spreadsheet that compares both.
Okay.
In case you didn't have it.
Right, thank you. You've got my back, Robert. I appreciate that.
Here for you, bro.
So it would go from $31.99 to $26.24?
That is correct.
Left side is twice a week service. The right side is once a week service with the rates and the escalator for the remaining term of the contract, which is capped at 5%.
Correct.
What's the remaining term of the contract?
2026.
Ends in February, end of February 2026. This is when the 5-year term would expire.
I had 3-1. Sorry, it was leap year.
Okay.
Just a year. I also added what recycling, we haven't talked about that yet, what it would cost to add recycling to this rate. We can get in that conversation if Councilmember Jameson's questions were answered with this spreadsheet.
I think I've caught up. Thank you.
Okay. So you would save $5.75 of what the city is charged per customer.
That's correct.
Would go from $31.99 to $26.24.
Correct.
And then the cost for an extra container for those people?
Right now, it's $6.87. That would still remain the same.
I had $6.75, sorry, $6.87.
So the net impact, if we went to once a week service and a citizen wanted to get a second trash can, they're effectively paying the same amount. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, per council action in October, that rate was raised for an extra cart to $10. So the fee that Waste Management would charge the city would stay the same at $687. But action that y'all took in October was to raise that fee to 10 for an extra cart. You get one cart with the service.
So if someone who wanted, the people who prefer twice a week service, if we went to once a week service and said you would need to rent a second can, we saved $575 by going to once a week, but then the second can would cost them $10. So in effect, their rate would go up $5.
Yeah, if we kept the extra can at $10, which we have the option to lower it to the 687 and not make a markup.
And make it a wash then. Okay. I'm catching up. Thank you.
Okay, not a problem, not a problem. So any more questions on the once a week option? So I know over the last several years, the discussion, from the community input is looking into curbside recycling. And so for residential curbside single stream recycling, we do not offer that on a rear load truck. That is something that we would have to run an automated side load truck to pick up residential single stream. Therefore, the residents that have alley service for trash, they would need to get their recycling cart to the curb on the street for us to service with an automated side load. So that could be challenging if there's not really easy access from the alley up to the front of a resident's house to get the recycling cart to the curb. So that's one of the biggest challenges that we faced looking to go to the residential single stream recycling.
Does the street side parking affect you being able to get to those carts?
Yes, it can. Yes, we would need the cart cleared. So our arm can reach down and get the cart, dump it without clipping a mailbox or a car.
And that recycling is not included in the 26-24 rate. You would have to decide if you wanted bi-monthly or every week.
That would be every other week for
$8, right?
For an estimated $8. We did not run a performer on that, but that's comparative to what we've offered some other communities that wanted to add. Every community is different in the driving distance to get to the community, get to the disposal site. A lot of my contracts are managed out by the Highland Lakes. So we've got to transport it to Burnett County Transfer Station, then get it into Balcones Resources in Northeast Austin. So any recycling we would collect from here would go to Balcones Resources. However, we are in the process of building a state-of-the-art single stream recycling facility at our Mesquite Creek location just south of San Marcos and north of New Braunfels. That should be operational in 2 years. And yes,
So the recycling, that's $8 a month.
that is an estimated,
Yeah,
yes.
an estimated. So you're talking $100 a year for the in-town residents to pay for recycling on that. It would be around $100. $8 is going to make you around 100 over 12.
Sure, understood.
This question may be better for Councilman Jenkins, but the types of products that would be picked up eligible for recycling through this compared to what we do at the recycling center, what's the difference?
I have no idea. I'm figuring they'll pick up everything, but I don't know. Do y'all pick up glass?
Glass bottles and jars are acceptable.
Are acceptable
Single stream.
in single
Residential,
stream?
yes.
So you see where I'm going with that,
that's
is
the
that do we
extra
need the
that you would get
recycling
out of
center?
that. Yeah.
So at that point, do we need the recycling center?
That is up to. the
That's a
council.
hypothetical and I'm
That's
sorry,
up to
but
the council. If you want to take it, if you take it away, then you take it away from all of the people that are outside the city that use it. And there's a majority of the members that are from outside the city more than there are inside the city. Paying the membership fee. And it may be moot. I know that everybody wants the glass. I understand all that. I have a big feeling that next year the recycling costs are going to come way down because of what we're doing, the activities that we have moving forward.
but this option provides for glass.
It does.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you for your time. Okay, we appreciate the relationship.
Thank you.
I do have somebody signed up to speak.
Hey, one quick question for Robert. When would you Robert, when would you typically want to start negotiation with Waste Management? If it was a February 2026, would you want to start
Yeah, the
a year out or
contract-
9 months out?
The contract dictates 90 days
Okay.
in advance if you're going to go out to bid.
Issue a letter of non-renewal. It would need to be 90 days before the expiration date.
Is that what you asked?
Yeah,
Not-
that's exactly
okay.
what I'm asking, is when you would want to start talking officially about a possible renewal. Correct. Contractually, it's 90 days out, or we get a no service cancellation letter, but we could start talking to you.
And we can start talking earlier in 2025. Absolutely. Okay, thanks again. Have a good evening.
Very interesting. Thank you, Robert Patillo, 606 Short Street. Thank you for this presentation. I appreciate you coming to the table with that. I hope we're not taking any action on any of this tonight, because I think there's still some more study that needs to be done. As far as the cross street, you have a couple of different options that could be considered as far as congestion on streets are concerned. The cross streets where we have alleys tend to be a little less congested. That's not always true on every street, but it's generally, I think, more available on the side, the cross streets. So people that have their recycling, if they want their recycling picked up or their garbage, they could bring it down to the cross street, which is not as laborious to get it around to the street. And it eliminates more of the congestion on the street. So that's just one thing. Also, as far as if you don't want to eliminate the twice a week pickup for now, in the interim, as a temporary measure, what you could do is change the color of the once a week cans to the top of the can to a yellow top. And those cans that have a yellow top are only picked up once a week. And the cans with the green tops are picked up twice a week. So that's one modus operandi that you could adopt to handle the garbage in the interim and make this change so that people that are affected the most can get some relief. As far as $8 for recycling per family, I think that's pretty dadgum good. As far as the people that are outside the city being upset because they can't get their recycling picked up anymore, I would just have to say that that's tough luck. I mean, they didn't have it before, and they were taking advantage of the fact that they didn't have to pay anything to bring it to Smithville. Maybe they could negotiate with Waste Management to pick up their recycling at their homes. I mean, that's what I would suggest. And I guess that's just about it. I'd probably have a couple more questions and a couple more comments, but I'll wait. Thank you.
If you allow me, Matt, does Waste Management have the ability to separate service classifications, per Robert's recommendation about a yellow versus a green, once versus twice?
Right now, our trash and recycling carts have a standard lid color. So having a different color code for once a week versus twice a week, that is going to be a long shot. I can certainly broach the subject with my management team, my regional director, but I would say it's going to be highly improbable.
Because even if you were to even consider that, it would be, you'd still be coming here for twice a week, just like you were before. So it really doesn't negate the cost that you're doing. So that just doesn't, don't work.
Right.
If I did the math right, is there still 1555 waste management customers inside the city limits. Is that the right number? So if you multiply that times $8 a month, so you're picking up the recycle for $12,400 a year. That's what that math turns out to be. So it's versus 69,000 that it cost us to do if I did the math right. And I'm not suggesting this is a very complicated issue. There's lots of considerations. I mean, lots of logistical considerations. But the reality is there's lots of cities that have a combination of alleys and streets. There's lots of cities that have low overhanging power lines in the alleys. Lots of cities have pickup once a week. And I tried to draw some conclusions from the survey, and I'm not as close to it as Jose, but to me, it's about 50-50. And so depending on which way you want to be biased, you could say a lot of the people want it, but you could equally say a lot of the people don't want it. So I think it's a real difficult situation for the council because it is pretty evenly split. And I think when it comes down to budget, we have to weigh, is $5 or $6 or $7 worth a lot of potential changes and consumer or resident education. But anyway, I just want to make sure I understood it. Did I do that math right, Robert?
You did not.
I didn't?
No, so
Well, that's why I kept
it's
talking while you did the math.
1,555 customers times $8 a month times 12. So that's 149.
Okay, so that's the math. So what do we charge per year? And it costs us 69,000?
Right now,
Roughly $70,000.
70,000.
Okay.
And that's just for the man being there. I guess that's the electricity too, Robert?
So I think what you have to do is you have to look at if we can do it cheaper, the argument for saving money for residents you have to take that into account. And I would expect that you would be able to do it cheaper. And if you're not doing it cheaper, we in fact are doing it cheaper and we are providing it to people outside the city and we can charge them a fee to offset that cost. And that brings our net cost down even more. So anyway, for me, it's a mathematical, partly economic to the citizens, but also just logistic. I mean, how many times do we really need to be picked up? And it feels like the citizens there's only 287 respondents. So it's not like a huge sample size, but it is meaningful. And it's interesting. It was about 50-50.
Mayor, if I had one more question, what's the practical reality of us negotiating or renegotiating any of this prior to 2026?
Well, if we renegotiated, we would want to execute a new 5-year agreement.
So you would be amenable to us talking about this now, you would just want a new 5-year agreement. So we would not necessarily have to wait until the end of.
Correct.
One more question. We own the land that the current recycling center's on?
Yes.
Thank you.
We all good?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks again.
Mayor, are you looking for action on that or do you want a table?
I think we're waiting to go into the budget on this, aren't we?
I think we ought to wait and
I think we're going
discuss
into
this.
the
I'm
a
just
little
saying, do
more.
you want a motion to table or we're just gonna let it go?
I'll just let it die.
We'll discuss it at the.
Was there even action proposed?
No.
No.
Possible action. It was just
No.
possible.
I
action.
didn't know what you
It's
wanted.
an informational.
Yeah, this is good.
He's holding on by the door back here. Okay, we'll tell you bye again.
Yeah.
You can go this time. for
You
real.
go this
All
time.
right. Dismissed.
One step.
Thank you.
Thank you. Where are we? Number 20, discussion and action on certificate of appropriateness application at the Blue Bonnet Room, 115 Main Street. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. I'm Caroline Noya. I'm sitting in for Monica Paz. She let me know at 5 o'clock this evening to please give this report for her. So this meeting was like a month ago, so I don't remember all the details, but I do remember that the applicant had submitted an request for the certificate of appropriateness application at the Blue Bonnet Room at 115 Main. They want to turn it into an event center, and there were 2 designs on the sign, and whichever design they choose was appropriate for the event. Like that was one of the ones I think most people liked. It's that one. Okay. So it was approved. We recommended approval for this sign. We thought it would be appropriate. It's gonna be an event center, right? Yeah, an event center. Anything else you want to know about it?
Ms. Noya, what kind of event center? Not that it's relevant to this sign design, I just don't know.
Will this be like for, parties, dinners, receptions,
So like
weddings?
an on-demand schedule rent, it's not continuously open.
Right. Correct. It was just gonna be events as.
Lisa, come up
as
and introduce
reserved.
yourself. Hi, Lisa.
Lisa Altmeyer.
Yeah, it's a small event space. I just completed my certificate of occupancy, so it's 75 seated for a meal, 150 if it's standing room only. My target is like baby showers, bridal showers, events like that, not so much weddings, but I could do a wedding if somebody wanted it.
I apologize for my ignorance, but that's exciting. Thank you for bringing that to me.
Sure, I'm very excited too.
For you.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Lisa or Carolyn?
Just out of curiosity, there's two different depictions. Is the one with the white square with the leaves?
No, it's
This is
that
the
one. The
final
white one was what I sent to the
Gotcha. Okay.
where we would hang it on the building and, because that's all that I could get done on. And the other one is sent from the We Logo Anything, their proposal to me. So that's the one that we're.
Thank you.
It's aluminum. Yeah. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for bringing this to our city. This is wonderful. This is, Mitchell's right. This is very exciting for us.
It's beautiful too. We're doing open house on the 23rd of May. If anybody wants to come, come to the ribbon cutting and open house.
What-
Yes.
Are there dual kitchens, I understand, in there? Or
No, there was not a kitchen whenever, my dad owns the building, so when we renovated it, there was not a kitchen. We put in what I'm calling a kitchenette. It has a wall oven and it has a microwave, a refrigerator. We have a sink, but there's no stove. Plenty of room for plugs for, crock pots or whatever. But
So it's kind of,
cook a meal there, but
Mhm.
we can keep food warm there.
it kind of DIY, you do your own thing, you
Yes.
pick your caterer, you just provide the facility.
Yes,
Gotcha.
yes,
Thank you.
sure.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thank you. And she has a second also. You want to just present it? Or do you want me to go?
You
Go
have to
ahead.
go. Let's do this.
I mean, wait, hold that because we have to do the,
Discussion and action.
yes. Council, do you have any other questions? I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move approval of the certificate of appropriateness application at the Bluebonnet Room, 115 Main Street.
Motion been made and second. All in favor? Approved. Discussion and action on amending to the Historical Preservation and Design Standards mural policy regarding simple mural additions.
Okay, this was also, brought to us a while back and, there was some discussion about this, it says in the case that the mural, has previously been approved and installed in the historic commercial district, and the building owner would like to make a change to it, an administrative approval is possible if the request meets the following guidelines. Colors match existing mural and conform to the previously approved historic color palette. The same materials are used to create the change to the mural. The change does not affect an area greater than 25% of the existing mural. The change is not considered controversial to a reasonable person's standard. Now, I know that's kind of wide, but the definition of reasonable. If any of these standards are not met, or if the staff find the change to be questionable or controversial, then the change in the mural should follow the HPDS timeline or would be considered on a case-by-case basis. And we were doing this, and it was unanimously approved by the committee, and it was being done to help save time for the applicant and the city.
So I have a question. So the purpose here, if we approve this, are we essentially delegating authority to approve those mural changes that meet this criteria without having to come back through? And if so, does that change the definition of the long name committee in terms of a board and commission its approval status, because I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later. I don't have any problems personally with this. I just want to understand what we're being asked to approve. So if it met these standards, then it wouldn't have to come back to the council.
Yeah, the impetus of this was to add Smithville, Texas to the bottom of the flag on the old bank building that Victoria and Edward Allen owned.
Right.
Not to have to be so administratively burdensome to
Right.
do so.
Okay.
Correct?
That's correct. Anything else? Any other questions?
Yes, please.
Mayor, I move that we approve the changes in design standard guidelines as presented.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor? Approved. Discussion and action on approval for the postcard mural background options. Jill, are you still here? There you are. Getting little, I didn't see you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you again for, this is one of those exciting projects we've got going through the Texas, Commission, sorry, where am I? The Cultural District Program. This was approved as a Texas Cultural TCA, Texas Commission on the Arts. Oh my gosh, sorry about that. It's been a long day, yeah. So this was one of our grant programs. We have a really wonderful artist that's working with this. And basically, if you remember, this came before council in, I think it was January. What this project is doing is we'll use this as a postcard mural at the back wall in your Riverbend Park at that restroom that faces the parking lot area. So what she'll be doing, the artist has already been to the junior high art classes, and they've already provided a number of their artwork that's all going to be related to Riverbend Park. So they'll have a lot of, she showed me a couple of them. They're really lovely pieces, and she'll be taking and professionalizing those community drawn art pieces for this project, putting them into the white spaces in the letters. So it'll be a postcard mural you see, like you see in other places. So what we're asking you to do today is to look at these three backgrounds and to see if you prefer the first option, second option, or third option. The couple of things that are different, the first option is basically a color background, like a no background option. The second option, if you look at it, the difference between the second and third option is basically you've got that Riverbend Park scene. You've got the Tin Man up in the distance. You've got Riverbend Park. The little signage underneath the R and the I is basically where the artist is planning on putting a, thank you to the kids, all the kids' names, and whoever sponsors and things like that would be going down in that area. So you see there, the difference between the two is just the welcome to in Smithville, Texas is in kind of that orange color that she uses in the Riverbend Park outline, or versus the black lettering. So those are the three options are no background, and then option 2 and 3 are differentiated by the coloring in that letter. So we're just looking for your guidance on that. And then she's now collected quite a number of the kids' art pieces, and she'll start filling that in. The timeline on this is that she's going to be trying to get, this project has to be done no later than August 31st. So the next step after she gets all of the pieces in, we'll bring a final product to you all for you to just sign off on it and say if there's any changes at that time that you'd want to see, looking at probably the June or potentially the July date of council deadline, council meeting. Then we'll take that and take it over to Bastrop Signs and Banners, and they'll turn this into one of those vinyl signs, and they'll install it so that this will all be done in July and August. We'll have it done, and we'll have a big party in the park and open it up to everybody and have all the kids come out and have it all. It'll be a lot of fun.
Which one does the artist prefer of the two? Did she give you any?
She didn't give me any, no, she didn't give me any. She'll do whatever we want her to do. She didn't tell me if she had a preference.
I like the river and the.
I like the river and the black.
It'll go, so it'll be on that back wall. If you look at there's that restroom that's at the front of the park where the disc golf the first disc golf thing is. So it's the back wall on the outside facing the parking lot area.
How big is it?
Oh my gosh, it's about 20 feet by 8 feet, I want to say 20,
3 feet.
53. It's huge. Yeah, it's big. Yeah, sorry.
How do
53
we
feet
call
wide.
this a postcard?
Yeah.
It's a 5 foot by 28 foot.
It's called a postcard mural. If you think about back in the 50s and 60s, they did this kind of thing a lot. Yeah. But it'll be a great photo op. I mean, that's kind of the idea is you'll have people standing in front of that space underneath the E and the R basically is where we're kind of envisioning this. So you can see Riverbend Park and you'll have the Fisher people on the one side and the park on the, anyway. Yeah, exactly. It's a little tourism piece. It's kind of thing people like to do.
Ask the audience which one they prefer, and then we get a kind of an
Do we all,
opinion of what they do.
does everybody see it?
Can y'all see it?
So
Is
Is-
it option, okay, it's
So
option
can,
three.
Three.
Let's do it.
Okay, wait, let's do it.
A show of hands.
Anybody, okay, stop. How about option one? Option one, one, two, oh, you can only put one hand up.
Option one is
How many are
without-
back there? 1, 2, 3, is that correct? What, you gonna hit them?
Okay,
Oh,
No, so that's.
wrong answer. Beep.
Here's one, here's two, here's three.
Okay, so we're on option one. We have four, there are only 2 people, so 3 people. Okay, so option 2. 1, 2. Option 3. All right,
Option three.
Overwhelming.
all right, who's gonna give me a motion?
Mayor, I move we approve option 3 as the choice for the mural.
Okay, I need a second.
I'll second.
At work.
Motion been made and seconded, all in favor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, approved. Number
Thank you.
3,
I'll go
Thank
back to
you.
the artist. Thank you all very much. Appreciate you all. Thank you, everybody.
No, thank you.
postcard, Maura.
Well, that was fun. That was fun.
We're on 23 now.
Discussion and action on a license agreement to encroach that 314 Main Street for a sign and existing awning.
Okay, Council and Mayor, this is for HT Fitness. They need a license to encroach because they're putting the sign basically in our easement. The license to encroach requires insurance. So if the sign were to fall on anybody, all liability is assumed by the business entity, not the city. Anytime Fitness, minus HT. Sorry, didn't mean to. Sorry, guys, if you're watching. HT Fitness.
You just, that's close up.
Couple, yeah, just a couple questions. One is it any hours, limitations on hours of lighting on the sign?
sir.
None controlled by any ordinances. We had talked at one point about the Long Name Committee potentially extending its area, not that it would be applicable on this one because this was already going through, but is there any reason to have discussion about extending the design standard, the Long Name Committee's purvey over Main Street north of where it is today?
I need to do some research regarding, these were on the National Registry. So there's a formal application to extend if you want to be recognized at the state or national level. That doesn't mean that the Long Name Committee or the council as an entity can't extend that
Right,
for the Long Name Long Name Committee
right.
guidelines to apply. Need some coffee.
Get off the cough drops.
Yeah. What's the name? Historic
I
Design
know it's long name.
Preservation Standards Advisory Committee. Yeah.
That's right.
All right.
Any other questions? I entertain a motion?
I'll make a motion that we approve, let me see, the license agreement to encroach at 314 Main Street for a sign and all the existing on.
I would second that.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor? Motion is approved. Number 24, discussion and possible action on the current city code of conduct, including ethics and conflict of interest policies for employees and council members.
Okay, Council and Mayor, you've had a draft, update to the draft that we started, well, back during budget season. This is the latest update from our legal counsel to address the boards and commissions' request for an ethics policy. It does cover the city council. It covers all of the boards, the authority boards, the planning and zoning, the decision boards, and then the Friends of boards, as well as the council members. This is still a work in progress, but it was requested an update, and be happy to entertain any questions or any comments or any changes that you would like to see in this document.
Mayor, I have comments because I introduced the agenda item, if I may.
Go ahead.
First of all, to the city manager, I appreciate you providing the red line draft and that we can expect to see this anticipated on the July agenda, I believe is what you indicated.
Yes, sir.
I also appreciate the reference chart that you included for Robert's Rules of Order and the meetings and procedures and processes to keep our meetings moving smoothly. And this has been a very smooth meeting tonight, Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you.
I asked for this item tonight as we are a new council, and I certainly heard from the community during the campaign that citizens have concerns about ethics and conflicts of interest. I think it's important that the public has an opportunity to see the draft and have input, knowing that we potentially plan to take action in July. I actually took the time to read the draft and the red lines, but it's very difficult to read and understand in this format. If anybody in the audience or viewing online has attempted to try and understand, I'm not very good at colors and or understanding red lines and modifications. So I do plan on asking for a draft of the document if we could, Robert, that would show it. It would read as if it were the document itself, and maybe we can post that online for review. So that the citizens, if we could do that maybe 30 days in advance so that citizens could have the opportunity to digest it and come to us with any additions, changes, recommendations that they might want to make. That all being said, I'm interested in hearing from my colleagues their thoughts on the current document and see if there are any other areas of interest or concern.
I have a number of just quick comments or observations. Some are just questions. There's a reference under 4.1.4, the hospital authority, where it says the city has little or no authority over members except for their appointment and budget review. Do we get the opportunity to review and comment on the hospital board budget?
We do not. That's
Okay.
something I need to
Okay.
talk to Jason about.
There's a section, I guess it's 1.5, where it talks about these groups operate under their own bylaws and guidelines. We're making reference, I think, to hospital authority and housing authority. We have the right to make reference to their bylaws and guidelines. When was the last time, do they update those periodically, Robert? Have they been in place for a really long time, or do you look at them?
Been in place for a pretty
Yeah.
long time.
Okay. The last thing I'll say, and then I may send you some email comments offline, but the last one is there's reference to the hospital authority board being staggered terms, and I don't think that's the way they currently operate. At one of the meetings, I asked that question, and I don't think they do. You might check. I think they should, but it's really not our purview to tell them how to do their board positions. But they did appoint everybody on the same day, including the ones that the city does. So you might check on that with Linda.
Will do.
Another question, Mayor, if I may. There's reference to residency. How do we define residency? Is that qualified voters for city elections? What's the definition of a resident? Or do we need to define that?
In the past, it's been, some of the boards, like the planning and zoning, is both registered voters and a citizen within the city limits. It's something we probably should define, relax or tighten, however you would.
And this question came up during the campaign and the election as to people as to what ballot they were actually eligible to vote for. So it came to me that a resident's not necessarily someone who can vote in the city election. Okay.
And the other portion of this request, if I recall, was to provide what we do for the employees. And we've had an ethics policy and conflict of interest policy in place for quite some time. It's included in the packet for your review as well.
Yeah, saw that. Thank you.
Well, in 171 government code, that covers all of this stuff. It's really difficult, I think, to try to interweave between what's at the state level and what's at our level, because there are certain instances where we reference things that might be in conflict with state. And I can talk to you offline about those couple instances. I would assume that state's always going to take precedent over anything that we put in place.
Shoot me an email.
Okay, I will.
We're gonna take.
That's it.
Anybody want to take any action or we're?
I have somebody speaking. Brittany?
Please state your name.
Brittany Olvera, 105 Fifth Avenue. Welcome, new council members. This is probably one of my favorite topics. Ethics is doing the right thing when nobody's watching. So my question is, what happens when somebody's doing the wrong thing and nobody sees it? How do we catch that? And one thing I've asked before is why there's not a more of a whistleblower policy in place. When we're a smaller community like this, I think it's easy to feel like you have to look the other way or protect someone or not say something because you maybe fear your job, or in this town, you might fear your business. Because that was happening here too. So I'd really like the council to think about putting in place a whistleblower policy. And these can be done through a third party. They're out there. They do cost a little bit, but you can do the research, anywhere from a couple $1,000s a year to 10,000 a year, depending on the size and what you need them to do. But it would actually give a place for people to call in anonymously, report what they've seen or think they've seen or what they don't like that might be going on, and have a very unbiased approach without people being in fear of retaliation. So that's the one thing. I'm kind of with Mitch. I was having a hard time reading through everything because it was a lot. So I look forward to seeing kind of the redacted version. But just making sure on things like how we're purchasing using NIGP, which is the National Government Purchasing Code. I think there's a lot of things in there that really help you when you're going out to bid on things. I know what we've seen is I see a lot of the bids that we have an open bid policy and only 2 people on every single bid item. It's like we always get 2 bids. We get 2 bids. And so I'm just curious to see if we're following some of those practices that are laid out to encourage other bidders. And then also to make sure that the bid tabs are open to the public. And I'd also like to see who goes over those bid tabs. So who in the city is actually going over those contracts and awarding the grading system. I think that can be really important. I think that really covers it. You know, one thing I was reading when I was doing I had sent the city council last year before the end of the year, some stuff that I found online with some other local cities close to us. And I did some more research and found Marcus doesn't have a bad one either. So it's worth looking at theirs potentially. And they have a lot of theirs online as well, but they have some good stuff in theirs. One of theirs was interesting. They talk about community values and defining and upholding community values such as respect, inclusivity, ethical challenges, protecting ethical challenges in a small town. And that in small towns, the challenges can be the homogenistic population and a deeply ingrained traditions, so that sometimes integrity is not being upheld because of those traditions. So hopefully we fix these. Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
May I say something? Page 15, number C, where it talks about a public official has a substantial interest in a business entity or real estate, and the official's action on a matter would have special economic effect on the business entity or real estate. The official must file an affidavit, the city secretary, stating the nature and extent of the interest before the vote or decision. What it talks about a substantial interest, but I wonder if that should be a little clarified a little more. Substantial interest.
One of the things, if I may speak to this, I mean, one of the things that I think is important when you look at conflict of interest is this phrase distinguishable benefit beyond what accrues to the public. And I know that comes up when you're dealing with things like the budget or things like that, where you're being asked to decide on something where the voting member may have an interest in it, but that interest is indistinguishable from the interest that accrues to a large population. That would then not qualify as a conflict. I think at the very beginning of this, it excludes that reference to distinguishable, but it states it several other times in the deal. So I do think that's an important phrase when we look at defining what is a conflict, is that it can't just be that you accrue a benefit. It has to be a distinguishable, unique benefit that doesn't accrue to the general public, because everything we do has some benefits on ourselves too.
Thanks, Tom.
Any other?
Mayor, Madam Secretary, are you recording these questions for action item follow-up? Or is it something that we want to move? I don't know that we necessarily need to take action on this unless we want to, if we can make the formal draft without the redlining, and so people can read how it might read coming forward and post it on the website.
Documented the notes, but I don't think it has to be an action. I think that it is a working document and that we would be doing another meeting to go over this more in depth.
Okay, and you've captured the whistleblower and the bid process question? So Mayor, my question to you would have been, do you need a motion? But apparently, no, this is not something that we need to do.
It's a work in progress, so do you have anything else you need to add?
No, ma'am.
Nope. Anybody else? Okay. Then,
Point of
oh,
clarification.
oh,
For the whistleblower, is that for employees or is it for council? Is it for everybody? What do we, the more definitive direction?
I might ask you to research what other towns do, because
Gotcha.
I hadn't
Landmark
thought
is-
of that. Is Ms. Olvera still here? Mayor, do you mind if I ask her that question?
back up to Mike.
Your comment obviously had an impact, and so we were trying to get a better definition of the whistleblower portion that you had seen at other towns.
Well, I don't think anybody is not subject to it. I mean, how could you not be? Anybody that's an employee, anybody that sits on council, it could be somebody that you've elected or put on a board that represents the city in some manner. At the end of the day, we see it all the time. Bad things happen and unethical things happen. So how do you stop it?
So you're basically asking for a broad-based.
I'm
it applies to
asking for a
anything.
broad base.
Gotcha.
I mean, if we're going to be a city of transparency, honesty, and ethics, then we shouldn't mind it, right? We shouldn't mind when the light's shining on everybody.
Mayor, if I can make a point, I do think that there's a couple things to consider on the subject. One is, is there a place that the general public knows where to go if they want to make a complaint and it be confidential? I think that's the crux of, I hope that's the crux of what you're saying. That's the way I interpret it. I'm also a big proponent of not trying to create laws or rules or ordinances against something that's not a problem. And this was one of those where it's hard to prove a negative. You'll never really know whether you have a problem, but I do think having a safe harbor, or at least having it be publicly known, where would someone go if they wanted to make a complaint? I think that would be what I would suggest is important. And for employees, I assume you have a non-retaliation, you have a process in place for employees to make confidential,
But we
complaints.
do.
I think we already have that. But for the general public against elected official, it might be just a place where people know they can go that's confidential, and it may be a third party.
So correct me if I'm not right, Robert, but I did ask for an open records request last year, and I specifically asked, what policies do we have in our HR policy? How are people trained? What's up in the offices and what's the process? And I was told we have nothing.
I don't have a whistleblower policy, but I gave you the information, the copies of the employee handbook, as well as the board, what I had at the time, the boards and policy handbook that we had developed. So this is the update to that handbook per your request.
We have it. I'm sorry, Mayor. We have a non-retaliation policy.
Correct.
Don't we? Yeah. So someone can make a complaint. I mean, it could be something about misconduct.
It wasn't a whistleblower.
No.
policy.
No,
So
but
that's the
in a-
distinction
Okay. Yeah.
that I'm trying to make with Ms.
Yeah.
Olivera.
Okay.
So where do they go?
I mean, where did
Like, where do they go? How are they trained now, and how would all of staff know where to take a concern?
It's part of the employee orientation that Jennifer gives each new employee from the handbook.
I'm just curious, so where would they go? Because that wasn't defined, if I recall correctly.
if anybody has a complaint, I mean, I am HR, they can come to me and it would be confidential. And I would go to the, whatever that problem, the department head.
I'm a almost brand new employee and that's the instructions that I've received. If there's anything that need to be addressed, I can, especially if I have something to say about Robert, I will talk to Jennifer and then proper channels.
And then where would you go with it?
It depends on, I mean.
See, I mean,
it's
that's,
like-
but that's the thing. If there's not like a kind of policy in place for that, where would somebody go? Because if you go to the city manager, what if the city manager's friends with somebody else? I mean, that's the problem. I mean, I don't think there's a policy really in place to protect.
Mayor, if I may, we just include that as the action item follow-up that as we move forward. Perhaps if Robert, you're looking at July for this?
Yes.
So we might, and what I'm talking about in terms of us posting a draft document 30 days prior so that the public has a chance to digest it, we might have to bring this back up again in June quickly to see what other items we might want to include that have been brought up tonight.
I think what Brittany's talking about is a third party outside of the city that investigates things like this. So I don't think she's talking about having anything that we're gonna be doing inside. She's having a number that you call if you have a complaint like that, and they do a third party investigation. Now, that's gonna mean, and this.
It's an option.
Yeah, it is an option. And what you're talking about though is not going to be cheap. I know you can say that San Marcos or those places have it. They have a much more robust income budget and things like that. If I don't know, and I'm just saying as a councilman that's been here, a year or so, and I've been in the city a long time, other than one occasion, I don't think I've heard of anything like this happening with any city employees or anything else. And trust me, I talk to a lot of them on a daily basis.
Well, I would say outside of the bubble, there's a bubble. Okay, and I would say outside of the bubble, there's other conversations too. So I would just say there's two sides to every coin. And I have looked into some pricing and it can run, I think I said a couple thousand to $10,000 to $12,000. So it's just an option. It was just an idea. All I'm suggesting is that we look a little harder at what we have in place and have a policy and give people a safe place that they can go if they're seeing anything that they don't feel is right.
A safe harbor is always an option. Everybody should have a safe harbor. Nobody's disagreeing with you about that.
Okay, yes, and you made your notes? We'll look into it and then we'll.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
And the red line version, the clean version, we can put online tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
It's
And then we
available. It
can-
is easier to read. I looked at the
Yes,
red,
yes.
so, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so no action on. Okay, so that was 24. 25. Discussion and possible action on upcoming budget plan process and proposed schedule of related meetings and workshops.
Okay, Council and Mayor, on a bumper sticker, there's been a very detailed budget schedule published. At the request of the council, we wanted to start this process in May. I will have the first budget meeting on the 22nd with some other items. But I have to tell you that in the fact that the assessed values, the preliminary values have not been certified yet, it's going to be very difficult to hit a number. But I'm going to provide where we are with the current budget, where we are with the tax note, revenues versus expenditures, and get you through that process each month as we get deeper into the process. And I have to say that all of my staff are engaged in the process throughout the process. Very detailed in July. Once we get that number, we start identifying plans, programs, and what we want to do, where we are and where we want to go with citizen and council input along the way. So that's schedule is up here. If you have any questions to that, please let me know.
I've got some comments or remarks since I sponsored this too, Mayor, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
So thank you again, Robert. I appreciate you making this information available to us in response to the council and the citizens' request on March 22nd. when we take up the matter like this as an agenda item, it kind of automatically assigns a greater degree of importance for the community and becomes a matter of record. So I appreciate the opportunity for us to discuss this. And I really appreciate the fact that we are moving up the process and increasing the number of workshops. Because last year I was very uncomfortable with the compressed time frame. We had to deal with the additional pressure of a controversial tax note. And I'll appreciate this year that we don't put ourselves in a position to either approve a budget or we simply won't be able to pay the bills a few weeks later. As I've said over the last few months, I think it's critical that we have a vision and plan for the future that identifies our priorities for the next few months and year, and then for the next few years and on a longer term basis. While we are entering the comprehensive plan process, this endeavor takes 18 to 24 months to develop and 2 to 4 years to execute. We need to prioritize our objectives for the present and near-term future now. We can keep in mind that we won't know our property tax revenue until July, but in my opinion, we should set our priorities now so that the city manager and his staff know that we could have a need for a potential reallocation of resources if necessary to achieve the priorities that we set forth. Of particular interest to me is funding an expansion of our economic development department to facilitate and expedite increasing our sales tax revenue, and to review the need for additional city staffing, including creation of an assistant or deputy city manager. I'm sure my colleagues have their own thoughts on these issues that need to be prioritized, and I'm interested in hearing those if there are any.
Anybody have a comment?
I'll just make one comment. I do appreciate the timeline getting moved up. I think more opportunities to meet and discuss is probably better. I do think that something that we may not have done as intentionally in the past is I would like to see is prioritization and not starting the process with kind of sacred cows or the assumption that we're starting kind of where we ended up last year. I think there are opportunities, not that we'll end up in different places, but I think we should talk about, broad categories of expenditures, how we prioritize those. And maybe there are some things that we've spent money on in the past that maybe we don't spend money on this budget cycle and instead allocate them for something different. I'm not suggesting what those might be, but I do think the process of prioritizing things by categories is a worthwhile pursuit in the budget process.
Anybody else?
Mayor, city manager, is the plan and process and calendar available on the website yet, or can we make it there? That's the only action I'm looking for out of this. I'm not proposing unless we need that in the form of a motion. I think that.
No, we're going to, these dates, they're gone. The dates are set. So I'm
And
not
we-
sure if they made it to the calendar yet, but.
Yeah, I didn't know if they were out. She's already put them.
Yes. And this is in the packet, but I can put it somewhere. I can put it on the budget page too.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can direct citizens where to go. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Everybody good?
I do have Brittany speaking on this.
I also put in the city manager report this month as well.
Brittany Olvera, 105 Fifth Avenue. Great job putting this together. So thanks for putting it on and getting it out there. I just had a couple questions and want to make sure we can get the information. Like in our P&Ls, all the other categories, would it be possible for me to get a breakdown of what those other categories are in each? Because we got about 160,000 spent already this year in other categories for each section. Is it possible to get kind of a mini breakdown of what those other things are?
You can do it through open records request, or we can talk about it during the budget meetings.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we can bring that maybe to the first meeting that we have, possibly?
Cynthia, do you know what she's speaking of? Each of the,
It says other.
Like if it says literally other, under police, it says
Right,
other,
but when
under
we do the
administration,
budget
other.
process, when I hand out like the departmental sheets,
Mhm.
those other line items are detailed.
Okay. And then the departmental
So you
sheets,
actually see them if you would.
that's what I'm looking for, probably. And then
Don't know that did we post them? I think I post them online.
The only time I saw them was up on the wall when we had them in here during that, we were fixing to pass everything and then it's up
I
on
mean,
the
I know
wall
they're
with all
in the budget packets when we give them out. They're the detailed yellow, basically what we call the yellow sheets, and they're detailed individual line items.
I would
When it
just,
goes to council, I mean, the financial reports are summary.
They were part of the workshops, were they not? Those
Yes.
yellow sheets, so they're available now from last year.
I recall us going through the line items with the
Yeah,
specific
they're
budget
detailed
code, and I discovered what some of them meant that I didn't know in the past, so it's,
So
I understand your
if you click
question.
on it, does it? That one?
will it drill down?
Oh, no, no. No, but you should have. Yeah, do the annual budget. So.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Workshop, here's your workshop presentations. That's
But I think that's Robert's. Go back out,
Yeah, the yellow sheets are in your.
do the top one. I want to see if it's in the approved budget. I can't remember if we added it. Scroll down. Keep going.
This is awesome. I love our new website.
So there's a summary. So there's a breakdown on the revenue side. See if it's on the expense side. Did we put all those departmental sheets?
They should be the yellow sheets.
Yeah, go, keep going, keep going. There they are. So there, if you look on there, your other is
Other
broke down on all of that.
Where that was under the departments and then finance.
Okay, great. And then those yellow sheets, will we be able to get those when each department starts breaking down their budget and gets a synopsis of what they're headed toward?
That will happen at the August budget meeting when we have time in July to figure out where we need to go.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Discussion and action on ordinance amending section 12.02.031, City of Smithfield Code of Ordinances to remove requirements for engineering studies for stop and yield signs on through streets.
Okay, Council and Mayor, amending this ordinance will allow us to take ownership of our own destiny, if you will. Each of you rode with Chief Repka a couple months back. Look at where stop signs should be, where yield signs should be removed, replaced with stop signs. Removing this requirement will allow us not to have to go and do an engineering study to put a stop sign on a through street like Short. Okay? The requirement will still be in effect for all new subdivisions and our roads that are added to our community. So this is basically just addressing our traffic control devices. And Jad, correct me if I'm saying anything inappropriate, but that's clearing this up or amending the ordinance will allow us to take the next action, which is placement of stop signs at key locations with which all of you rode around with Chief Repka to determine.
Want a motion?
Yep.
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 2024-650, amending section 12.02.031 City of Smithfield Code of Ordinances to remove requirements for engineering studies for stop and yield signs on through streets.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor? Approved. Discussion and action on amending Chapter 12, Traffic and Vehicle Ordinance, Article 12.200, Control Devices by adding stop signs on MLK Short Street, Colorado, and removing a yield sign on Colorado.
Okay, Council and Mayor, here are the recommended locations for the stop signs in question to really try to slow down folks on some very tricky intersections. Colorado and Short is one that's had some problems. Do you have any questions on what's being proposed?
Any questions? Give me a motion.
Mayor, move we approve ordinance 2024-651, amending chapter 12 traffic and vehicle ordinance, article 12.200 control devices in the city as shown in this ordinance.
I'll second that motion.
A motion's been made and second. All in favor? Approved. Approved. I didn't see you there. Cynthia's favorite time. Discussion and action on approval of the financial report.
It's been taken care of.
Okay, you should have received in your packet the April financial report. Basically, our revenues are at 62% of our budget where we're supposed to be. Kind of holding the same as last month. Nothing out of the ordinary, no big expenses or anything like that. General fund, again, is still looking good, slowly,
Wait for hot weather.
Yeah, utilities slowly improving, and as the weather gets hotter and unfortunately as electric bills get higher, that'll improve. Nothing looks out of the ordinary for right now, just kind of where we're at. So, and I don't know if y'all had any questions about it or specific.
Looking for a motion?
I move to approve the, how do I say this again? Approve the financial report. How easy was that?
I'll second.
Thank you.
Second it, all in favor, yay, approved. Yay, Cynthia. Okay,
A
guys.
couple announcements. Council, may I have a couple announcements want to make. If you haven't seen the Riverbend Park sign, that was a project 20 years in the making. It looks very nice. Now you know it's actually a park out there. New playground equipment is going to be installed in the next 14 to 21 days. The old one has been removed. This is part of the equipment that we purchased with the tax note. So looking forward to the children playing on nice, new, cool equipment.
When?
Oh,
When will
3
it be?
weeks.
3 weeks.
Two,
We're supposed to be done next week, but we'll probably be done this week.
That is way cool. I also want to say, for those that didn't see, the basketball court resurfacing is awesome at MLK, by the way. Really cool. We go over there for T-ball games and there were people playing out there. I got calls from people saying people were playing a lot on the court.
Yep.
So that's really, really good. So appreciate that.
that was funded with tax note again.
Yep.
So every now and then good comes out of the tax note. Sidewalks, if you, First Street sidewalks are going guns. It really looks very nice. They'll continue down Main Street, but the biggest thing I want to tell you is the northwest second drainage project starts June 1st. It will be a 1 year to completion, and in the monthly report, there was a phase diagram as to when it's going to start. So take a look at that. Good things are happening.
Move to adjourn.
Oh, crepe myrtles. Stop it. Crepe myrtles on Charleston just got replaced. 16 crepe myrtles. What? Don't be hollering at me from the audience.
Memorial Day at the VFW, they always have their hot dogs, hamburgers.
Yep.
Oh, Jill, come on up here. I think you got something else to say. Yeah.
10-year anniversary of the Veterans Memorial Park on Memorial Day, 9 o'clock in the morning, the laying of the wreaths. That's Kathy Karcher and her partners group does that every year. And so grateful for that, one of those partners programs. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. So that'll be Monday, the 27th,
At
9 o'clock
9
at the Memorial Park, and then 11 at the VFW.
And the fire department has their fundraiser this weekend, isn't it?
Yes,
Oh,
Sunday.
Yes, Sunday. So come out to Riverbend Park and support your local fire department. Music in the park this Thursday. I think it's Byron Brin. And the chamber mixers at the VFW on Thursday. So lots of fun things. Thank you, and the meeting is adjourned.